Hey everybody, this is Patti. Welcome to the witching hour. Yes, the hour when the veil is thin and magic happens. I have some very special magic for you today. She is a witch. She is a paranormal investigator. You know her from television. You might even know her from movies. The one and only Susan Slaughter. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for finally coming on the show. I've just loved you and followed you for so long. So thank you for bringing your magic here. You guys all might know her from Paranormal on Camera, which is one of my guilty pleasures, I must say, as I flip on Travel Channel. And here we go. Let's see what she has to say. So again, and not that many, we know people in our paranormal world and we know people in our witchy world. And it's rare that the two cross over. So kind of how did that happen for you? What is your story
Um,
or your origin story? No, just you know.
the origins of Susan Slaughter. I guess it starts mostly, like most people that get involved in the paranormal from personal experiences that have intrigued them. So my earliest memories dating back to my childhood involved seeing spirits, and I guess, was intrigued by that. I also have two very special parents that kind of molded me into being a curious and spiritual person. My mother, she was raised Catholic. She went to school at a nunnery. She's the type of woman that would pray on a rosary. And how she met my father, who eventually transitioned into becoming a full blown Wiccan and eventually a woman. So I have two mothers. I know. Yes, I'm a daughter of a trans parent. So my trans parent, she decided to start a coven, and I was raised in my early teen years like being around that coven. At the same time, my mom was like, well, if you're going to go and spend the weekend with the coven and do drum circles, you're also going to go to Sunday school. So I did both, and I kind of lived in this duality, and it kind of gave me the knowledge and the upper hand in spiritual practices, spirituality. And it also like had me like scratching at the door with questions about my own personal experiences with spirit, like with the spirit world, seeing like orbs and shadow people from like a really young age. And the lucky thing that I had with both of my parents is that, my mother believed that, they're guardian angels. And then Jan, who's my trans mother, she believed, I had a gift, and they both kind of allowed me to explore that. So I'm very lucky, in that. And then, it was my transparent, the witchy one, who was like, hey, if you're seeing things, here's a piece of equipment. And she was the one who gave me a K2 meter when I was like 13 years old. And she's like, next time you're having an experience, turn this on and see if it corroborates with what's happening with you. And then also got me a camera so I can go around doing spirit photography and things like that. So she kind of, allowed me to pursue that. And then of course shows like Ghost Hunters were out. So I started watching that, and I was like, wow, like you can go with groups of people and do this. And I thought that was really intriguing. So then I ended up joining a team in my hometown, which is in Miami, called the League of Paranormal Investigators, when I was about 18 years old. And I was like, let me be in. I mean, I know I'm super green. I have a K2 meter and a camera, and it's like, at the very least, let me review your footage and whatever. But they threw me in the field, and I ended up doing investigations in like Tequesta Indian burial grounds, historical locations like the Deering Estate. We did house investigations, and we went down to like the Everglades and Central Florida, investigating the paranormal in Florida. So when I saw that while watching Ghost Hunters, that they were looking for new investigators, well, I was like, all right, let me put together like a little reel of what I do with my team. And that's how I ended up on television. And I got cast for the very first season of Ghost Hunters Academy, which
Mhm.
was a competition reality show, which they didn't tell me at the time. So when I got into it, I was like, oh, I thought they were putting together a new team. It's like, no, we're putting together a new team, and you guys are going to compete to be on one of our teams. And so I ended up winning alongside Carl Pfeiffer, and they put us on Ghost Hunters International. So eventually I stuck around on Ghost Hunter International for like 3 years doing travels all over the world. And when that kind of fizzled out and the show got canceled after I think 4 seasons, then I started the Dark Zone, and you could go to the darkzone.tv and see like my rogue investigations that I do. And what I do now is I investigate with other teams. I'm not necessarily part of a team. Ghost Hunters International really introduced me to some amazing, amazing, amazing teams all around the world. And so now what I do is I just go and hang out with those teams. Like for instance, I'm like this summer I'm going to one of your favorite countries, Romania, and I'm going to England as well. And essentially what I do is I just go and tag along with other teams all over the world and investigate with them. And whenever I do dark zone investigations in the States, I just cherry pick my favorite investigators, whether they're investigators from YouTube or investigators from other shows that we know of. And I investigate with them because, I mean, I love it. I'm not, and I know we're going to talk about this eventually, Patty,
Yeah.
but being a witch and an actor and a paranormal investigator can get a little hairy,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to credibility. All right. Because they're like, wow, she's investigating something. How do I know she's not acting? How do I know she's not being all woo woo with her intuitions? Like, because, I am a science based investigator. Like, I allow my ability to help me lead in, like, my intuition's like, you know what, Susan, you should put your IR camera here, and that's as far as my intuition goes on an investigation. But because I like to have like real tangible evidence to show any of our clients. And as much as I love investigating, it's not something I do as much anymore. Like I find my home more now in practicing my spirituality. Like I remember, I think the reason why I got into investigating was because I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy and seeing things, and that maybe kind of test my ability to see like where it lies in the spirit world, like what my strengths are, what my intuition is like. I'm 36 now. Like I started investigating when I was 18, and I feel like that, like I've graduated to a different mode. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm not here to prove anything to anyone anymore, and I know that spirits exist. I sense them. I understand a lot more about myself and how I interact with them. So I'm not trying to like prove by capturing things on camera and audio anymore. Like now I'm just trying to experience and like evolve in my energies. So I find myself like, yes, I'll still go on investigations, but now I just enjoy going to places alone with no gear, and just sitting there and like having my own little moments with the energies. And that gives me more thrill than being like, look, I caught something. I'm right. Like there's something here. I have like nothing to prove anymore. I'm
Yeah.
sure like there's a three. You got the maiden and the mother and the crone, variations of when you graduate. And I feel like I've entered my mother stage.
Okay.
Like the maiden stage is done. Now I'm into the mother stage where things are shifting around.
Oh,
So
that is beautiful, and I like it too. It is fun, and it's not out to prove anything. Though what I do like about equipment is like I could be saying, well, I'm sensing a spirit or seeing a spirit, whatever. They're going like back and forth with their hands. You believe me or you don't believe me. But now there's somebody with an SLS camera that shows the exact thing I'm seeing in a different room where we're not. It's like this is fun. This is just
yeah,
fun. We're not solving rocket science, but it is opening up we both work with like YouTubers and all that. It's like just to see like young minds opening up to a new possibility that everything isn't black and white, everything isn't just what you see on the surface. That there is magic everywhere. Not
absolutely.
there's magic everywhere. So that's what I like about bringing the kind of the magic of my belief system, my pagan belief system into that. I don't preach to anybody or anything, but they just see who I am and how you deal with it, and you see little light bulbs go on like, oh, I can go here, I can go there, just with their own empowerment more than anything else. Empowerment through ghost hunting. Ha!
I have some questions for you, Patty. I know this
Okay.
is your show, but
No,
this is my opportunity to like kind of learn a little bit about like your magic. And,
sure.
you said you have like you're pagan, like you identify as a pagan witch. Like, tell me more
I
about
am.
that.
Yes. Well, yes. I started out again. I was a seeker. Like, yeah, I was not taught out of me when I was young. Mom, yeah, grandma did that too. Grandma did that too. I wasn't raised with any kind of religion. Opposite. My grandfather was this famous atheist humanist. So, but I would drive by a church, a temple, and I would see the energy, or a park. I'd see the energy, and I'd want to go there. And then by the time I was 13, I just became this a seeker of things. What was the question? Wait.
You're answering it right now. I was just, how did you find your pagan magical
Oh,
roots?
so anyway, so and I was young and I was like, okay, tried this and tried that, from Buddhism to born again to evangelical to this isn't quite, and then it was that big. I mean, you probably weren't even born yet. That late 80s, the big Wicca, where everybody became Wicca and Shirley MacLaine. And I found first that like New Age spirituality, and like that's a little pastel-y for me. And then I went to my first Long Beach women's spirit meeting, and I'm like, oh, they worship trees too, sort of. My perception of it at that time. I'm going, these people, these are my people. But since then, it's taken so many turns. I just encompass everything. I will work with every belief system, because if you take it down to those universal truths, it's just different words on the same template of truth. You could use Judeo-Christian words. You could use Wiccan words. You could use pagan words. You could use atheist words. I read my grandfather's books, who wrote on philosophy and religion. I'm like, Grandpa, Mr. Atheist Humanist, you believe the same thing I do. You just use scientific and academic words. You're not going to use versus magical or spiritual words or anything else. So I just like that. Just it's all one. It's all one. I don't. It doesn't matter what you
Yeah,
believe. Just find your roadmap to get there. So I think.
I, I,
So
I
I don't know
understand.
what I am.
Yeah.
I'm a witch. I'm a pagan.
Well, the way I tell people, I feel like science is spirit explained. And so, really, just because it's been scientifically proven that like energy is this, or, on the electromagnetic spectrum, of all that fluctuates in this planet, doesn't make it any less. I like the term supernatural because it is a naturally occurring phenomena, but it supersedes our knowledge. I almost prefer supernatural over the term paranormal, because paranormal means not normal, outside of the norm. Supernatural means the natural, all encompassed, but beyond, And so I do believe that science is a spirit, and I use a lot of scientific based things like grounding tools and mechanisms, like grounding mats and things like that. I do a lot of like sound and frequency healing for myself. I do believe that sonic and sound resonance and light therapy, all of those things I could tap into spirit through and connect with like ancient arcane, like Gaia energy,
Yeah.
to understand like deep, deep truths with nature and become one. And I'm like this in this, I know it might be a little too heady or whatever, but it's like I feel like I'm like this newbie little meat body, like in such an arcane and intelligent like space within the cosmos, that the only way for me to understand that energy that's around me is to tap into it using sciences that we've learned, which is like the sonic resonances of certain, like, if I want to like connect with my sacral or my crown or ground, or like when I put myself in self hypnosis states using sound and light,
Yep.
so that I go into like resonances that maybe physically I can't do because I'm a human, you know what I mean? But spiritually I could transcend. And it's been scientifically proven that, when you tap into the infrared, energy spectrum, that it puts you in this really conducive and suggestive state, which is perfect for hypnosis. And if you want to ground into the electromagnetic frequencies, you can use like grounding, like I use a lot of copper and grounding things. So it's like my witchy tools, they have evolved. Like
Yeah.
I remember starting off with like, candle magic and like carving into candles and using intentions, which are still, I think, some of the best beginner tools that and I still do a lot of like what I called 3 and 4 dimensional magic, where I like to use physical tools
Mhm. Me
and
too.
then transform them via water or flame, so that like I think it's so important to use tools in the craft because it is showing in our reality, like using physical objects, because we are physical plane of reality. When you put your attentions in these objects and you transmute them or transcend them through other things like air, wind, water, like burning things. I love fire in magic.
Me too.
It's just like it changes your intention, your thought, and your into something. It alchemizes it into something else, and it kind of propels your intention forward. And now I don't do that as much, although sometimes I do. Like I have, like I make these bundles sometimes with my intentions, like once or twice a year. And but now it's like now it's I'm all heady. Like now it's meditations, it's light, it's sound, and those are my tools. And I find that I've graduated into being kind of more of a metaphysical witch, which
Uh,
is very different from like how I was raised, like around a coven, of Wiccans. And they had athames, and they had, so mote it be, rituals with like certain incantations that they would say and songs and stuff. And it almost reminded me of like you said, I could be at a pagan, or I could be at a Wiccan circle and see similarities like when I go to church on Sunday.
of course.
You know what I mean?
And again, and yes, you're right. Science and spirituality is crashing together with the quantum sciences. And what
Yes.
spiritual people used to know, the power of what fire does, or sound, or you get the right tonal thing in your voice, or your bells. Oh, now we know it's a megahertz thing, and it's the tonality. So just it's crashing together. And I do both. I am still carving candles and floating candles and doing, because I like tangible, here, hold it in my hand, do something. But
Hmm.
I am right there to have technology go along, and this is why it works. It doesn't have to look at it in the moment. We live an amazing time to have this crashing together like this.
I was also like stoked that there are podcasts like the Witching Hour that where we could talk about things like this and not get like burned at a stake anymore. When I think about like how evolved we have all become, like I'm also a very like positive and bubbly person. I am like an optimist over everything else. Like I don't, when I think about how far we've come as like witches, as women, as who we are in society, the fact that like, a person like my father can live their truth in the way that they want to and like completely change who they were from birth to the tail end of their life, like you could be anybody you want to be and you can express anything you want to express. And I love that we live in a time where we can have a conversation like this and people can find the witching hour that are curious and also listen to other people's experiences and make it their own and decide like how do I grow in this way? How do I do magic? How do I become a witch? How do I become a paranormal investigator? Like, because I had a hard time, and it wasn't even that long ago, trying to find people like that. Or there were these very small pockets, of individuals. And now with the internet and all of us speaking out, there's such a community out there. And I mean, honestly, like think about how I met you and there are other witches like Melissa St. Hilaire and all that. We all met online through what was it, Clubhouse app or something like
Clubhouse,
that.
I think Clubhouse, yeah. And I love Melissa, dear
And
friend.
it was an amazing conversation. I was like, who are these women? They're so freaking cool. And then it just like through all of that, bumping into you in real life and meeting you at other conventions and meeting you through friends, and it was just such an, and then working with Melissa on investigations. It's amazing to see like the connectivity that we are all, I feel like we should just form like a super coven or something.
Okay, it's already formed. We just did it. We are the super couple.
Okay. We just did.
And I guess you don't have to all
All
be
witches invited, we're all part of it.
Yeah, Melissa is great. And again, however, we all come together and meet the tribe, so to speak. Tribes are wider spread than they used to be, and different kinds. It's a different world. But and I do know since we both do the conventions and things, and it's so they are starting coming together. In like the olden days, it was tech, which is great. We love. I'm paranormal, and now there's more crystal people and magical people along next door to the tech people, and now they're I've got this new crystal balls coming on top of. I mean, they're this one science guy I know is connecting it all. It's like this is fun, and again, it's all coming together, and so it's so much more than just ghost hunting or paranormal. It's like I think is what paranormal is like we know that traditionally when times were scary, people would go back to their religion, go back to faith. You go back to church, go back to temple. What times have always been scary, but they're more scary now because we have 24-hour bombardment about it. So times are scary. So but going back to church or temple is not working for everybody. So therefore the rise in paganism, Wicca, New Age stuff, spirit of every sort. And there's still a whole group of people that like, I I don't want that. I don't even want spirituality. I just want to know if we get blown up next week that there's something more than what I see on my TV screen. They're becoming paranormal investigators because they want to know
Mhm.
it's like, well, if I get blown up, I can go see dead grandma in this haunted house. And then they go and then they decide, oh my gosh, this is real. There is more than what we see right here. And then they often will backdoor back into their original faith or create a faith or design their own thing to work to navigate. That's what I think the paranormal field has really done to bring people backdoor into, let me see why I'm here.
Yeah, and I mean, I do think that there are a lot of witches in the paranormal field. I'm noticing a lot more people or psychics coming in, and now it was hard for people who had intuitive abilities to access locations to kind of build that muscle, and now we have a lot of places that cater to the paranormal tourism so that people have access to it, so that people can like understand it. But that I love it, and I do events at places too, but that's a double-edged sword and something I think we could definitely talk about because I love that people are curious about the paranormal because what they're doing is kind of going down the rabbit hole on like I find that when you go to places that have seen a lot of death and they become like paranormal hotspots and you go there and you interact with these energies, a lot of people get like these sensations of like what it was like to live in those times with those traumas, with that kind of death experience. And I think it inspires people to live differently. At least, they're like, hey, like, I don't want to become like a haunted, like, I don't want to haunt a place. Like, I want to transcend this space. You know what I mean? It's like, how do I live my life to not become a ghost? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And like, what can I do to transcend? Because when people start to interact with the paranormal, I think they start to raise their vibration in a way that they start to see things a little bit clearer when it comes to the spiritual reality of why we're even here to have these experiences on planet Earth in these meat suits, doing the whole thing is really to like I feel to evolve beyond this and kind of graduate into another dimensional reality realm or another place, right? And I think a lot of other investigators are starting to realize that when they start investigating long enough, it shifts their perspective of
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great gateway drug, essentially, is paranormal like investigations and putting people and but one thing people are not, I think the new haunt that we're discovering today is less the ghosts of the past and more the egregores of people coming to locations.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is
The
the new
word that
haunt.
people didn't even used to know. It's egregore. What? Okay, let me tell
I
you
mean,
about.
yeah. It's like now I'm going to locations that are all fear-based energy because people are going there that don't understand what the phenomena is, fears the phenomena, and goes in there and leaves like messy energetic trails of their own fears and demonizations of these entities that are there. And it ends up turning the whole haunt on its head. And
Yeah.
you could go to a place that could have a totally benevolent energy there. And the second that like grandma's spirit moves a cup on the coffee table and someone demonizes that, all of a sudden grandma's ghost gets tainted with fear and anxiety and all of this stuff. And then you don't have like the authentic energy of that haunt there anymore. It all gets tainted by the droves of people going there over and over and over, forcing grandma's spirit to become something she truly isn't. And then it evolves away from who she was to begin with. And then that's where the egregores happen, because then it's like these entities only have the energies that are presented to them. And if you go there constantly, like with antagonistic energy, fear based energy, anxiety, then that's the only food these energies have to kind of live off of. And then they kind of morph and mutate into these things that were never them to begin with.
No.
And then now that's why you could go to a place and have all these other types of activities, and people don't understand like what egregores are and like how to like heal that anymore, you know? And that's the new haunt now. That's what I'm noticing. I'm not coming across genuine, untainted haunts anymore. I'm coming across a lot of egregores, you know, like
People don't know what that is, and that is a created spirit. We create the energy, creates something bigger than the sum of all its parts, and that's the most beautifully. I'm 100% in agreement, and you put it much more beautifully than I ever could, and that's true. And I think the biggest one I've been to that it is again the Cecil Hotel, the everybody's most haunted place. I've probably been there more than anybody, and it's one great big egregore. It's not Alyssa Lamb's over here and here. It's like, whoa, everybody goes in with such this, it's from the sad beginnings it's ever had, created something so much bigger than the sum of all its things. So yeah, if people
I
could
mean,
start.
look at what the Cecil is now, too. I mean, you have a lot of people staying there. I mean, for the time, it was like kind of a vagrant hotel. You
Mhm.
got people going there with like induced mental illnesses, drug use, addictions, like all sorts of
Sure.
stuff. And it's like, you don't have to die in a place to haunt it, you
No.
know? And that's another thing I need people to understand. It's like you can go into a space that had been lived in for years, you know, by someone who was struggling with mental health issues or addictions, and that energy sticks around. That person didn't have to die in order to haunt that location. All that trauma gets stuck within that space, you know, and it will affect individuals like you, whether you're sensitive to it or not. Like we have our own ability to like feel energies. Like when you feel like someone looking at you, or you feel someone throwing shade at you, that's your intuition. You're picking up what is around you in your field. And if you go and you move into a new apartment that had just seen a ton of domestic violence, there was a man there that had like insane hatred towards women, and you're a woman that moves into that apartment, even though that person's still alive somewhere else, you're going to feel that like that abrasive energy because it sticks around. Same scenario. If a man moves into that apartment, all of a sudden becomes an aggressive person, is like, why do I feel this way? They become possessed by those energies that are still there. It's not because someone died there, it's because trauma happened there, because a lot of mental energy and stress was like schismed out of a human's perspective, like a human space, into the encompassing space, and it gets stuck within these like places.
Right.
And it's just one of, I think, the things that I've noticed, my biggest ability is I'm an empath. And so I notice that whenever I go anywhere. And it's such an interesting thing because I mean, sometimes I'm like, God, I wish I was clairvoyant, or God, I, you know, wish I had, and I have moments like if I
You are. I
really
know you
tap
are. I
into,
see that you are. You just, yeah, you are.
I just, you know, I do have my moments of clairvoyancy, but I have to kind of address it through a different avenue.
Yeah.
So like I notice like I have my empath moments, and then I'm like, oh, like I'll feel the emotions and I just have to sit with them. When I sit with that moment, then all of a sudden I start getting the face to that to that emotion, and I start seeing things, but it takes a while for me to get there. It's not like I've seen you go on locations and you just kind of like things like I could see you seeing something in your eyes, like behind your eyeballs. I see it working. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it seems like it's so tangible for you, but like me, like in order to access these energies, it's like I gotta take back streets and different routes, reroute from here to there to get there, or like peel away at these layers to access a clairvoyant moment,
Yeah.
like a piece of information that's so fleeting. But the emotion, like I am an empath through and through. I feel everything. I mean, not just with people and animals and trees and nature, but like cars, mechanics, like everything. I could feel it. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's crazy that I could even like empathize or have an empathic ability with inanimate man made objects too. It's crazy. So I mean, I love it because the being an empath means anything that comes towards me, I know its intentions right off rip.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how good looking you are or how atrocious looking you are. I've seen beautiful, smooth talking people with the worst intentions, and I've seen the most derelict, monstrous looking, sad people like with the best intentions. It's like book by the cover type thing. And so it is a blessing to be an empath because you'll
Yeah.
always feel someone's intentions before they tell them to you.
Right.
And it's really, I think one of the reasons why I had to move out of LA.
Ah, there's an energy here. It's to me, it's somewhat
There
of a
is.
love hate too. There's vortex. I've seen them. There's vortexes in the hills. Literally, the biggest one is in Griffith Park, halfway between Hollywood and Burbank. It is no joke that Hollywood is right here. It drew in the creative right brain, whether actors, musicians, spiritual. There's 7 religious things within a mile of my house, from theosophy to self-realization to Vedanta Center to the Catholic nunnery. It drew in, and those little things dot all the way down and just increase everything. And it depends on where your thing is, if it pulls you
Yeah.
in and pushes you away. But I know why Hollywood is exactly where it is, Los Angeles in
Yeah.
general. So
Well,
but
I used to live on the edge of Griffith Park. I lived off of Los Feliz, and it's exactly like you said. There was a temple up the street. There's a church up the street. There is also like a philosophical research
Witchy
society right
society,
down the
yeah,
street.
we talk about that
You
all the
know what
time.
I mean? Yeah.
It drew
And
it
I
all.
loved it.
It drew air. It drew, and it's this thing. And people come home and it's either I can do this or do, or you just have to find. But exactly what you were saying, we all how you get to your clairvoyance. We all have a different way. We have to learn our own language, our own spirit language. It's learning to dance between our logical brain and our intuitive brain. It's learning to what works for me. Isn't going to work for the next. I teach that in my classes. It's you discovering your own, but it's allowing people to go back to the inner place to find what your truth is. So like you going back to your meditations, and if you're using your sound waves and color, it gets you there.
I'll tell you one of the things that actually really hooks me up to my clairvoyancy is a method that I found in the paranormal field, which is the Estes method. And some colleagues of mine, actually Carl Pfeiffer, who I mentioned earlier, we had like graduated the like Ghost Hunters Academy together. He was one of the members of this team in Colorado that created the Estes method alongside another member from season 2 of the Academy. Tate is her name, and then Connor as well. He was also part of the team. So those 3, Michelle Tate, Carl Pfeiffer, and Connor, they were the ones that created the Estes method, and in Estes Park, Colorado. That's why it's called that. So
Ah,
when I started using that method, it was interesting because I've always, I mean, I ever since I saw the movie with Kevin Bacon, White Noise, and like we're thinking about like analog investigative things like from the 70s and 80s, like and the science behind spirit, voice, and radio waves on the electromagnetic frequency. I always try to explain, if you could pull up an electromagnetic like frequency map and you see on the tail end, like closer to the microwave, like long wave, dark energy waves, you get to radio waves before you get to microwaves. And the radio waves are teetering between what we as human beings can access and what we cannot access, and even darker energy past microwave. And so it's the link between what our physical bodies can handle and what the dark energy, which is where I access dark energy a lot. That's kind of where my power sits, is in the dark energy, which a lot of people are like, oh, that's evil. I was like, no, it's just
No.
an other end of the spectrum that I just feel very comfortable working with. Just like I'll work on the ultraviolet spectrum with like, Enochian magic types shit. Sorry, I didn't mean to say shit, but like, like on the other end of that spectrum too. But like dark energy is where I start accessing some like real information. And that's where you start getting the spirit voices can access that, because it's like this weird, easy tether between what we can hear with our ears and understand with on the spectrum, and how spirit voice can be recorded. I mean, radio waves is how we listen to music. It's an invisible wave that can go into all of these mechanical devices that we can access sound from.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that spirit voice can come through that. And
Of
so when we're using a ghost box or the SB7, we're accessing that dark wave energy on the tail end of, radio wave frequency. And then we listen to it. And of course, we hear the radio stations,
Yeah.
when we go through it. But one thing I've learned how to do is like when you really allow the like if you listen to it and you'll hear like what like all this stuff popping through like the stations, I can just listen to the static and just meditate on that static. And I access, like with the blindfold, I don't see anything. I access via radio frequency like a whole other, like it's like an audio hypnosis type thing that I do. And then all of a sudden I start seeing things. I
Oh,
start seeing people.
yes.
I start like I access it, and I start seeing whole things, like whole scenarios, entire people and details. And then if I really focus, and then if you see me at that moment when I've accessed it, I look like a drunk like woman, like just
I
blah, like I've all passed and I'm just like passed out. It's probably super scary for people to witness. And another thing I do is I will sit in infrared light as well, and help me access infrared radio frequency energy. There you go.
This what I
What
added
is that?
glasses added to the Estes method. They are flashing. They could be just solid red if somebody has, you don't want to do flashing with anybody has like epilepsy, but you do slow flash. This changed me to see exactly what you're talking about. Mike Delco is in Florida. They're part of War Party Paranormal, I think. He
I
sent
know those guys.
yes. Oh my, you need these kind of broke. I wore them out, but but this does exactly what you said. You get past the and it becomes visual. All of a sudden I saw everything. And again, this is using science to put you into that color, the light wave. And it's so funny that this is never sitting on my desk. And you're talking, I'm like, and these are sitting on my desk for no particular reason. So
I
magic.
know the guy from War Party because when I moved back, I was telling you before we started recording, I lived in Miami. And so I saw that they had posted photographs from this place called Deering Estate, which is one of the first investigations I ever did with my home team. And the photographs that they posted were from that investigation of what we captured. Like we caught a full bodied apparition in the field of Deering Estate. And I was like, hey, that's from the investigation I did. And he's like, wait, you were part of, the League of Paranormal Investigators? I was like, yeah, I was down that investigation that you posted all that stuff. And he's like, did you know that they have a whole room at the Deering Estate dedicated to the findings from your team? And I was like, absolutely not. What? And he's like, we're going to do an event at Deering Estate. Would you like to come? And that's how I met War Party. And they showed me the room with all of the evidence from my her first investigation ever. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was able to do like a lecture there for forensic students. So we took a whole group of forensic science students on a paranormal investigation, trying to correlate, like, because you kind of do have to become a forensic investigator, right? But in a different space. And so I did a lot of really cool, like, ghost hunting with these forensic investigators, and they loved it. It was really cool. And I loved War Party for that opportunity to like go there and also to kind of share with me like something that I didn't know about my old team. Like I was like, it was a very heartwarming moment. I felt like one of the reasons why I ended up back in Miami for a little bit was to connect with them and to have that moment. And so I love War Party Paranormal. They're good peoples.
Good people.
And I remember them saying, "Do you know Patti Negri?" I was like, "Yes, I know Patti." I was like, as a
Oh,
matter of fact, I saw her not that long ago at an event.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's so cool.
These
Small world.
it's a small world, it's a small town, it's a small industry, it's a small planet. Anyway, oh my gosh, time is flying, but you have to come back soon because I have a million questions we haven't got to. So, but tell everybody now is in love with you like I am. Where can they find you online, website, social media, anything you have coming up? Let us know.
Okay, well, I mean, on social media, I'm Susan the Dragon Witch on IG. I'm most active on Instagram, so you could come and say hi to me there. Yes. I
Um,
love my Draco Dragon arcane energies. I love them so much.
Me
It's,
too.
And so also I you could catch me on Paranormal Caught on Camera. We're shooting season 7 right now. I can't believe I've done 7 seasons of that.
That's a
And we have such a great crew now with like a lot of the people from your favorite paranormal series are now guests on Paranormal Caught on Camera. So I'm really stoked about it. And that you can catch on Travel Channel, Discovery Plus, or HBO Max. And I do have an event coming up called at the Great Lakes Paranormal event. That's going to be in September. So I'll be hosting a seance there. I'm very excited about doing that. I might get a little metaphysical with y'all in my seance. So come by and say hi if you're in the Great Lakes area. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just focusing on finishing up Paranormal Caught on Camera season 7. This summer, I'm going to be going to Romania and then to England. And I did want to, I mean, we don't have to do it now, but I will want to pick your brain about places in Romania because I know you do vampire tours there.
I'm doing. When this is airing, I'm on a plane there right now. When this because we're shooting it just before. When this is airing, I'm going to spend this next 10 days in Romania doing a
Where are you going?
everywhere. And we just had Dacre Stoker on the show, who is like the great grandnephew, son, whatever, of Bram Stoker. He's been there 14 times. So he's giving me, everywhere. Oh, go Bram Castle. Yeah. And the real Vlad the Impaler Castle. Oh, and the Bachu, the forest. And I'm like, I'm so excited. So like, I'm probably in an airplane right now headed to Romania. I love that you're going there. I'm going back to the UK in September, I think. This is great. So let people know where to go and go see Susan. So
I know I don't have any official events in Europe. I just had one like last year, but yeah, you could see me in September at the Great Lakes Paranormal Conference. So I'm excited for that. And you could catch me on Paranormal Caught on Camera. And I also, reply to my messages on IG. So if you have any questions for me, reach out to me at Susan the Dragon Witch. So yeah.
thank you so much for bringing your beautiful magic to the witching hour.